Hi, I'm Sophie Philpott. I'm the Senior Careers Advisor here at York St John. And I'm going to have a bit of a chat today about confidence and resilience, especially in regards to thinking about career planning and putting yourself out there and applying for jobs and things. So we're going to start by exploring the definitions of confidence, self-belief and resilience. I hope that by doing this, it gives us a better understanding about how they interact with us as individuals, what we can think about in terms of growth or changing them. We will have a brief look at understanding what can challenge our confidence, self-belief and resilience, so that we can then start thinking about why some of the potential techniques that we can use might help us. So after that, I'm going to then look at a few techniques. So I need to start this with a disclaimer. I'm a qualified careers advisor, so I'm a professional within my area of work. I'm not a mental health professional, and what I'm not doing is sharing techniques that are there to support sort of clinical mental health. We do have excellent support on offer from York St John, and what I'll do is I will link to their information below this so that you know how you can get support as a York St John student. What I'm going to do today with the techniques is give you essentially a whistle-stop tour, very top level, keeping it relatively brief, just introducing you to some concepts, because you might find that some of them work for you and some of them don't. This is just a starting point as well. There are so many more techniques that you can explore and use. I've chosen ones that have either resonated with me personally or I know have worked with other people that I know. And what I'll also do is in the information box below, I will add URLs so that you can go and do some further reading, or where I've got quotes for my sources for my quotes and things like that. So this is about us recognizing that applying for jobs or thinking about your career or moving forward with those sorts of thinking is really hard sometimes, and that sometimes that's about the information that we have access to or what support we have. Sometimes it's also about our mindset and our own attitude and our own approach. And while that's hard, the good news is that we have the ability to change that because it's ours. So this is about exploring it from that point of view. So to start with, what is confidence, self-belief and resilience? Have a think about what you think they might be. I think the big one is the key difference between what confidence is and what self-belief is. Resilience, I think, underlines and works with both of them, and they all really interact with each other. So a definition I like for confidence is something that you do, not something that you are. So if you think about somebody that you know that comes across as really confident, maybe it's somebody that's really good at their job, or somebody that's really good at talking to other people when you're out and about, or maybe it's a celebrity. Have a think about the kind of key factors that lead into that confidence. Confidence is exactly that. It's what behaviours you do that mean that other people view you as confident. You know the saying, fake it till you make it? It's one that's never settled very well with me, because I really value things like integrity and honesty, and I don't want to just fake it till I make it, when I think of it in that sort of sense. What I've learned about fake it till you make it is that you can learn to play a role where you portray confidence. You can portray confidence because it's what you need to do in that situation. So a large part of my job is doing things like standing in front of large groups of students and delivering information and teaching and running workshops. I also do a lot of one-to-one appointments where that interaction with somebody else is really important. It's crucial within those roles that I have a level of confidence. I have to be able to demonstrate that I have confidence in the knowledge that I'm sharing, that I'm comfortable with information being given back to me. So what I'm able to do is find a way where I can portray that confidence. So it's things like open body language, good eye contact, smiling, being able to laugh at when I stumble, or being comfortable with the fact that it won't always go to plan. Those sorts of things can be learned, but you do have to practice them. And I think that's where things like fake it come in. So confidence is something that you can practice, and it's something that you can learn. And what you do is not who you are as a person. It's behaviours. Self-belief is slightly different. It's your sense of what you can achieve. So this is a very internal thought process. This is the voice that tells you that you can do things. It's also the voice that questions whether you can do it at all. What's similar to confidence is that you can work on this. You can practice different ways of thinking. You can practice challenging your own negative thoughts. You can practice trying to work out whose voice are you listening to. Are you valuing your own? Are you prioritizing other people's? So self-belief is that real internal sense of yourself and about what you can achieve. This is where changing your attitude can really make a big difference with how you portray your confidence and how you feel about yourself. Resilience is how you cope and bounce back in difficult or stressful times. So it's not about never feeling bad, and it's not about never feeling like things are really hard. It's about recognizing that things are hard and that you do feel bad, but that you have ways to overcome that and to get yourself back on your feet. So somebody that is confident and who has a positive self-belief and who is resilient will also still have days where they feel like things are really tough and it's really hard to see that. But because they're resilient, they have the tool set that they need to come back in and question that thinking and to find ways to move forward. So the good news is about confidence, self-belief and resilience is that these are all things that you can develop. They're not a static thing. They're not who you are right now is you forever. So it might be that you feel that you've got 1 out of these 3 or 2 out of these 3 where you feel like you can see that there's a relatively easy balance going on for you. But it's about working out like what affects you, and different people will be affected by different things. So some of the things that I thought can make it tough include things like rejection. So this can be on a personal or a professional level. It can really knock your self-belief. Instability and uncertainty. I know that this is a big one for me. I often would rather hear bad news so that I can crack on with getting over it than being left in kind of limbo. So for me, whereas other people, that unknown brings like hope and possibility, and that known is really hard to deal with. So different people are going to have really different answers and different reactions to different things, and that's really human and really normal. Feedback from others can actually make it really good too, but it can also make it tough if you get feedback that you weren't expecting, or if you get unhelpful feedback. That can be really difficult as well. I think we can, many of us can be our own worst enemy. So we could always think that we need to strive for more and that what we've done isn't good enough. Sometimes not knowing what you're after means that how will you ever know whether you've achieved it or not? Because you can also strive for more and recognise that you've done good so far. Having big expectations, maybe unrealistic expectations, isolation, feeling like you're alone in a situation can really make things like your confidence and your self-belief and your resilience hard. Health, stress, failure or fear of failure. These are things that every human being experiences, all of them, in one form or another, in different ways, but every human being experiences them. And I think that nearly all of them end up being kind of something that can be seen as stressful. But it's about how you react to it. And some stresses are good stresses. I love a deadline. It really gets me moving and gets me motivated. but it is stressful. So some stress is good, but some too much or not enough or not in a safe area can really kind of make things hard. But like I say, every human being experiences these. So nobody's alone in it. It's just about how they manage it and about how they move forward with it. So onto some techniques that you can maybe start thinking about for how you want your confidence and resilience and self-belief to look. My first one is thinking about, what does success look like to you? If you can decide what success looks like to you, you can work out whether you've achieved it and be proud of your progress. And you can also stop comparing yourself to other people who aren't valuing the same success as you. It's really easy to be on social media or looking at friends and family and think, oh boy, but that person's got a better job than me. They're paid loads more money. But then is that what really matters to you? So it's about working out what motivates you. Why are you wanting to do the thing that you do? Maybe you're wanting to earn huge amounts of money, and that's fine. That's a good motivator. I understand it. Maybe you're wanting to be in a job where you feel like you're making a really big difference to people around you. Or maybe you want to be behind the scenes doing a job where you're changing policy and that's affecting lots of people. Or you want to be a leader, or you want to feel like you come home at the end of the day having ticked loads of jobs off your to-do list, or you're a problem solver and you want to be in a role where you're solving problems all day long. All of these are great motivators. If one or two of those or other things are what motivate you to get out and about, then as long as your kind of basic needs are met with things like minimum income and housing and support, then whether or not somebody else earns more money than you only matters if that's a really big motivator for you. If that's not a really big motivator for you, then it doesn't matter. It's about, what are you getting from your job? It's really worth thinking about what your values are. What is it that's really important to you? What do you need to have in your life to make things work? What do you need from the people around you in your support network? The motivations and the values questions are kind of open-ended things, and they might evolve as you change and grow. None of this is static. It's about building self-awareness and growth. But it's also worth thinking about some of the things that you could kind of have as a finite point. Writing down now, how will you know if you've made it? What is it that you're looking for that will allow you to be like, oh yeah, I've done what I needed to do? And I'm on to the next thing now. I'm going to rewrite this for what my next thing is. It's not about an end point, but it's about thinking, where are you now and what are you trying to achieve? Maybe you're trying to achieve stability, or maybe you're trying to achieve growth, or reducing stress, or sort of a really wide range of things. But how will you know if you've made it in your own version of success? Why are you trying to do what you do? Why this and not something else? And give yourself space to record or think about or consider both the small and the big victories. Maybe you're trying to earn enough money so that each month isn't stressful. That's a great victory, and that's both small and big. Or maybe you're looking to get that graduate job or move to a new city. Make sure that you've kind of got space to recognise the small and the big victories that are meaningful and important to you. If you can identify what success looks like to you, it helps you keep track of your own progress. It gives you space for positive and more critical feedback on your own progress from yourself. And it also allows you to take a step away from comparing yourself to other people's victories or successes or perceived successes. So Dr. Mary Poffenroth is a biologist, and she studies fear, but she does it in a non-clinical way. So she's not a mental health professional, she's a biologist. And what she's doing is she's looking into what our bodies do in terms of times of stress. And what she says is that stress and fear are basically the same. And if you can recognise that stress is a fear response, it can really change how you perceive it. Fear is a word that we don't tend to use in our sort of everyday, normal, mundane lives. And I just think it's a really interesting concept. And Dr. Poffenroth says that there are two key fears. Well, no, there's two key fears. There are fictional and non-fictional fears. So non-fictional fears are the ones where you have a fear of something that is going to directly impact your health or your life or you as a person. And a non-fictional fear is one that is made up of kind of stress responses. So it's about anxiety and worry. And so that these boil down to two types of fear response: the fear of not being enough and the fear of not being in control. So for lots of us, things that cause stress for us that might affect our confidence and our resilience and our self-belief often boil down to one of these two things. And I think that lots of us will be familiar with this in one way, but maybe not have thought about it in terms of why you're worried about handing in an essay or applying for a job or becoming part of a process that you then lose control in, like applying for grad schemes or moving to a new city. She also offers RIA as a way of coping with this. So when you're feeling stressed or anxious and you're feeling that you're getting a physical reaction to it, her advice is RIA. Recognise that it's happening. Think about why you're feeling stressed. Why have you got sweaty palms, or why are you breathing heavy, or why do you need to run to the loo, or why are you getting snippy and snarky with your friends and family? The first stage is to recognise, why am I doing this? Am I actually in a stress response? Am I feeling fear about something? Sometimes just recognising it is enough to stop it from spiralling or getting worse. And then the next stage is to identify it. Okay, so I'm in this stress response. I'm feeling really freaked out by something. It's causing a physiological response in my body or a behavioural change. Is it that I'm feeling the fear of being out of control or the fear of not being enough? Because if you can recognise it, you can then identify it, and then you're back in control. It's not controlling you. And once you've done this, that might be enough for you, but you can also then take steps to address it. So do you need to be questioning the logic behind it? Do you need to be thinking about other points of view and other perspectives? Do you need to be putting behaviours or practices into place that support you? So I came across this theory in a podcast hosted by Ali Ward called Ologies, and I'm going to link to the podcast episode below because Dr. Poffenroth does a much better job of explaining it than I do. And she goes into a lot of detail about why she does the work that she does and what she's learned from it. And just to reiterate my disclaimer that this is research done by somebody that isn't a mental health professional. She's a doctor of biology, and it's about that everyday stress and fear that we all feel. It's not about sort of clinical responses to things. Though there is support you can get if that's what's going on. I just want to make sure that that I'm very aware that I'm a careers professional, and that what I want to do is give you some techniques that help you with coping with everyday stresses that we all face. So one of the approach things. So what I've got here is about many of us fairly naturally fall into a where we either hear from other people or we say to ourselves things like, I'm either good at it or I'm not, and that's that. Or I don't like to be challenged about things. When I get frustrated, I just give up. I take feedback really personally. I'll just stick to what I know. This is a mindset that is quite into and quite natural for many of us, but it means that we end up limiting our growth because we can't. So it is about changing that internal voice so that you've got space to develop and to grow and to learn. And one of the big ones for me in it is that failure is about learning and growth. I'm going to talk some more about failure in a minute, but nobody grows and develops without failure. You can't. So if you're then that's your limitation. But there is a real choice in this. And I'm not saying it's not scary. It is scary and it does come with risks. But it's about accepting that those risks are a part of that growth and they're a part of the possibility as well. Growth mindset is about finding challenges that help you to grow and that your effort and attitude determine your abilities. What you know now isn't what you're going to know in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. That's all going to grow, but how much that grows and how it grows is determined by your effort and your attitude. And they're the things that are completely in your control. How much effort you choose to put in something and your attitude towards it is yours to manage. If you can see feedback as being constructive, and if you like to try new things, you know that you're going to continue growing. So in a study undertaken in 2019, it was found that 86% of graduate employers did not specify what degree they wanted their new graduate employees to have. This is because employers want attitude that suits their company. Your degree is an excellent springboard. It's a strong starting point, but it is so far from a limitation. It's the opposite of that. It allows you to build skills that are really transferable. So if you can go into a job and you can show that you've got the core skills and knowledge from your degree, so things like ability to do lots of research and form a coherent argument, applying critical thinking to the processes that you're in, being able to communicate well, work in teams, all that sort of work, then, and you can also show that you want to learn and grow, then employers are often less worried about what skills or knowledge you have because they know that you can learn that if you have the right attitude. So it's about working out how you're going to question your own mindset and see how you're going to help it grow. How much time and effort you put into things can sometimes be disproportionate. And I say that because I'm also like talking to me because I am also human. The field of concern, or I've heard it circle of concern or sphere of control or field of control, there's lots of different names for it and you can have a Google. It's about looking at what we can change and making sure that we put the time and effort into the things that we can change. So things like your attitude and your amount of effort you put in and how you think about things are all things that you can control. So then they're worth time and effort, but there are things that we can't. So in this image, we can see that the outer circle is the I, we, and it. And it's something that we can, it's all of the things that we are, and it includes ourselves and our relationships. It also includes big global pandemics, and it includes politics and society and job opportunities and the job market. It includes everything that we're aware of. The thing is that you can't just putting lots of time and effort into things that you can't change. Is it a good use of time? The yellow is our field of influence. relationships. That's the stuff that we can't necessarily have full control, can influence it. So we can build better networks that support us. We can work within our networks to affect change around us, or be changed by our networks if that's what we're after as well. So your influence, it might be that you can, at work, you can recognise that there are some rules that you can't change, but maybe you can see a way of speeding up a process, but you need to go and get support from your manager to do so. That's your field of influence. And then that smaller blue circle at the bottom is our field of control. That's the stuff that we can really change. So it's kind of limited to our awareness about ourselves and the actions that we can take. So it's about thinking about the choices that we make and about how we manage ourselves with our language, our emotion, and our body. So maybe this is about getting exercise that suits you, or making sure that the language we use is respectful and suits the environment that we're in. And while we can't necessarily immediately change our emotional response to a situation, we can change how we question that or how we accept it. And we can change things like our attitude and our effort. So if our resilience is feeling knocked, or if our self-belief is feeling knocked, this is a really good concept to just go back to. So just think, is what I'm worried about, or is what I'm finding difficult to manage at the moment something that I can control or influence? Because if it's not, where could I better put my energies? Could I put my energies into something that I can influence and that I can control? Because then I can then go back to thinking about, what's my version of success? What is it that I'm after? And that you can kind of blend these together. You can blend things together to try and find a way where you can be like, okay, I'm going to recognise that that's not in my control. I can't do anything about it. But I can think about my attitude towards it, and I can think about how I'm going to approach it next time, and I'm going to think about what I've learned from it. And that's how I'm going to build my resilience back up during a difficult time. So I mentioned failure. And I really like this quote from Dr. Joseph R. Ferrari. He's written a book about procrastination. Again, I found out about this on the podcast Ologies, and he was talking about procrastination on there, but also failure. And I'll link below to this as well. His quote is that clinical psychologists say that 80% is great, not 100%. People want to be perfect. And they often think, if I'm not perfect, I'm garbage. No, you're human, and no one's there. You're human. And that means that you're going to make mistakes, all right. So the clinician says, if you can reach 80% of your goal, 80% of what's out there, you're a success. A recent study actually supported this, that happiness, you're most content, you're most healthy with 85% success and 15% failure. So this falls in line with any of you that maybe feel that you have perfectionist tendencies, or where you feel like you can't do things, you can't apply for a job unless you meet 100% of the person specification, or you've not been successful unless things are 100% perfect. This is feedback to say that failure is really part of growth. It makes your success more meaningful because you understand the difference between where it's not worked and where it has worked. It helps with growth. It can really help with problem solving. If you fail at solving a problem, you have to understand that problem better to then be able to go in and solve it. It's often uncomfortable and it's often difficult, but it really is important to kind of explore how you feel about failure and how you perceive it. And this goes back to thinking about what you can control, and what you can control is your attitude. So instead of thinking about what you could achieve if there was no risk of failure, think about what you want to achieve, even if you know that there will be failure, because maybe that falls into your motivations and your values. And that really helps you know where you want to put your time and your energies. So Brené Brown is a researcher who looks at things like vulnerability and shame, and she also writes lots of books about leadership and growth. And her quote about failure is, when failure is not an option, we can forget about creativity, learning, and innovation. And this is important for when you're at work. If you're not allowed to fail in a job, it can really limit how you feel about taking risks like creativity or learning and innovation. It's also about your own personal expectations. So if you're not allowing yourself to fail ever, it's really hard to then learn and grow and be innovative and be creative. And I don't mean creative as in painting. You can paint all you want, that's amazing, it's good for you. Creative activities are good for you because you often fail at them and you have to learn how to overcome that. But they can, if it suits you, that's good. But it's also creativity about, like, how am I going to make this spreadsheet more accessible to people that need to read the data from it? Or the processes here seem to be slow and lagging. How am I going to improve those processes? It might also be that you want to go into a career that involves working with other people. So you have to be creative about how you approach different things to support different people. I will link to one of Brené Brown's TED Talks below as well. And she goes into a lot of information about things like vulnerability and shame, and that really links into the Dr. Possum-Ruff's fear of not being enough. And I think that there's some really interesting thought in there. And for me, this is about recognising our resilience, and that in turn, that can then really support with self-belief growth. So something that's a bit more practical, because I think I've done a lot of talking about kind of big theories and big thoughts, is to create a plan. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Do you want to do something that's big, like get that graduate job, buy your own house, earn over 50k, be recognised as a leader in your field? Like, are you talking about end goal? I don't yet know what I want to be when I grow up, and that's fine. So I would find some of those hard, but I have some other big goals that I would like to achieve. Or maybe it's smaller things, like you want to finish this assignment, or you want to write a really good CV, or you want to get a part-time job or find a voluntary position. If you create a plan, it allows you to regain control. So it allows you to work out what you want to do and put that down potentially on paper or on a note, and really kind of be back in charge of it. You're not just letting the world just happen around you, you're taking an active part in what you're doing in that world as well. You need to give yourself space for flexibility and change, because not everything will go to plan, and you need space to be able to learn and adapt. And plans, you can only write them with the knowledge that you have on that day, and it might be that a week later or 5 years later you've learned something new and different, and that means that you can change your plan with your new knowledge. This is good. It's not set in stone. It's about taking that control and knowing how you want to achieve something. So when you write your plan, break it down into how you're going to do the small steps between now and there. Think about SMART goals. So think about being specific, measurable, making sure it's achievable and realistic, and that it's got a time attached to it, like what's your deadline. And then also make sure that you get support. So it might be that you talk to friends or family about your plan, so that they can encourage you and support you and help you recognise your successes. Or maybe you want to speak to a careers advisor, and one of your plans might be ask careers for feedback on my CV. Or maybe you want to speak to a careers advisor for half an hour to say, I don't know what my plan is or how I want it to be. We love that sort of question. Coming to talk to us about us helping you kind of explore maybe what your version of success is. We're really happy to support you with that. Another more practical approach as well is planning for the worst but hoping for the best. I like this one because I sometimes get stuck because I'm really worried about what might happen. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm there worrying about what might happen. If I do this, that might happen. Ooh, I might not do it at all, and it can leave me a bit frozen. So I like this approach for when I feel a bit stuck. And what I do is I consider what the worst case scenario is. If everything goes wrong, what am I risking here? Am I risking my professional reputation? Am I risking relationship with students? Am I risking relationships that are really important to me in my life? Am I risking my security in my house or the things that I know? Like, I mean, the real worst case scenario stuff. And then just break it down. What will this mean? Like, actually facing it and thinking, what will it mean if my worst case scenario comes true? And then think, if that happens, what can I do to manage it? Is it going to be about accepting that things are bad? Is it about putting in safety nets or plans, or thinking about either my attitude, or maybe it's about more practical things? Really consider, what are you scared of with it? Why? And what can you do to navigate or mitigate it? Are there things that you can do to work around it? Why will the worst case scenario happen? And what can you do to minimize the effect if it does happen? Who can you ask for support? And I mean that now. So I sometimes can do this process, the plan for the worst, hope for the best, in my head. But other times I get stuck. So if it's a work-related thing, I might talk to a work colleague and be like, can I just run this past you and get some feedback because I feel a bit stuck on it? Or I might do it with friends or family. But also, if my worst case scenario happens, who can I ask for support in those circumstances? And if it does happen, what are you going to learn? Are you going to learn that your resilience is there and that you can cope even when things are really tough? Or are you going to learn that there were things you could have done to mitigate it or to move around, but they were hard to see before you had hindsight, so you're now going to use that hindsight to change how you behave in the future? If you can go through your worst case scenario planning, if it happens, you don't have to come up with a plan while you're dealing with it because you've already got one. And what you're then going to hope for is that you don't need to use your plan. But you're creating that plan means that you're no longer stuck because you know what you would do, and you can try things even with that risk involved. There are some things you can do as well to think about boosting your confidence. So that kind of, how do you get yourself in the mindset where you can portray that confidence that you need to portray in a situation? So it might be that you've got to go for an interview. Everybody feels nervous at interviews, and it really is about putting on a confidence performance, because you can be both confident and nervous at the same time. That's really human and normal. Or maybe you've got to stand up and do a presentation in front of your peers, or you've got to record yourself doing a presentation and it feels really awkward and weird, and you've got to do it anyway because everybody's got to work from home at the moment. So there's lots of different places and times where we need to feel confident, or where we want to feel confident. So think about a time or a place, an environment where you feel most able to be confident. So this might be that you've got used to doing something and you can now be really confident in your part-time job. Or maybe you feel most confident when you're at home playing a computer game and you're doing great problem solving. Or maybe you feel most confident surrounded by a particular group of friends. Or when you're researching and writing for uni. Like, there's lots of different places and lots of different ways to feel that kind of self-belief where you can portray confidence. What is it about that scenario, and what can you replicate? So you might not be able to move all of it across to a new scenario, but what bits can you replicate? So is it about feeling safe? So is it about being with a particular group of people where you know that even if you said the most stupid stuff, they'd just laugh along with you and you'd all move on from it? Or at work, it's okay to fail in that environment. You work somewhere where they've said it's okay. So you know you can put forward an idea, or you can try something. If it doesn't work, you'll all learn together and move on. Or is it the opposite? And what can you do when you don't feel safe? Can you speak to somebody that you do trust and feel safe with before you go in and air some of that? Does your confidence come from feeling prepared? Could you do more research or more thinking, or make sure that you carve out some time so that you don't go into something feeling unprepared? I know my self-belief is much better when I feel prepared, and then I'm much more able to portray confidence. Can you turn to friends or family support? This might be, could they come with you when it's appropriate? And if it's not appropriate or possible, could they be there on text message or a video call or for a chat? Maybe dressing in a particular way, a particular outfit makes you feel confident. Doing something physical, like dressing in a way that makes you feel like you're at your best, can really sort of be internalized and really help give you that self-belief and confidence boost. Similarly, things like just standing to one side and doing some big deep breaths and digging deep and being like, it's okay that you're nervous, you've just got to go and do this, can really change how you feel, but also what confidence you portray. And another good one I think that's helpful is imagining how you'll feel, the feeling that you'll get at the end. So if I do this, even if I don't get that job, I'm going to be so proud of what I've done. Or getting this essay in, or writing that job advert, or being ready to deliver this presentation, I can feel really proud about how I've approached this and how I've done it. So imagining what you're going to get at the end can then sometimes help you see the reward. And if you understand what your version of success is, you can know whether you're achieving something that fits within your version of success. Does it match your values or your motivations? If you can imagine that, it can work as a really good kind of, dangling carrot for you to push through and to dig deep and to do it. So I hope that has given you some concepts that are worth thinking about and worth considering, and maybe some things that you can start working on, either in that kind of big theoretical point of view or in a more practical, I can actually add this to my to-do list type way. We're really happy to support you. Part of what we do as careers advisors is goal setting and planning, and that can either be from I know exactly what I want to do, how do I get there point of view, but it can also be from I feel quite lost and I don't know what I want to do yet point of view. We can ask you questions that help you explore these and help create plans together. We also offer support with reading over applications and interview prep, and that can be how do you answer the questions, but also how do you feel less nervous about it. To access us at the moment, you can book an appointment via LaunchPad online. These are 30-minute appointments, and we're currently offering them either over face-to-face video or just a phone call and audio. And you can also email careers@yorksj.ac.uk, and we can answer some questions, and we can also give feedback on applications and CVs via email. You get support from us for the rest of your life. So you get support from us as a current student, but also always as an alumni. So you might use this to help come up with an initial plan, or maybe in 5 years' time you want to apply for a promotion or change career. We're here to support you. And we're definitely part of your support network. So please do access us and use us. Thanks very much for listening.